Good day everyone, so hope you're doing really well. The video title might suggest that this is another Genshin versus Wuwa type of video. It really is not. It's just about looking at Genshin Impact and seeing how the focus and direction has changed ever since we've had the introduction of Wuthering Waves. And certainly quite a lot has changed. So I can tell you straight away that Genshin Impact now compared to the Sumeru era is very different because we've got more combat. So just as a very brief recap, during the Sumeru Archon patch whatever, we had a very infamous developer interview where Hoyo basically told like the interviewers that hey, we're not creating more endgame content like the Spiral Abyss because it creates so-called anxiety. Fast forward, well, every single event that you've got now, every limited time event, has a very strong combat component, and a lot of this combat is varied. As you can see here in the background, there's a lot of like choices that you can make. You can scale up the enemy difficulty, etc. But even more so, the overworld's got all of the local legends. You've got the Wyope totems, which allow you to do special parries, etc. There's like so many more unique combat scenarios that favor certain teams and units, and it's awesome to see. We don't just have Masanori anymore, we've got a lot more punching bags. For instance, if I wanted to benchmark my Nilo Bloom team, I go to the Sea of Bygone Eras and I've got the infinitely spawning Vishaps that pop up. If I want a bit more of a challenge, I can go to the boss Vishap himself that constantly drains your party's entire like elemental burst energy and basically just hits you very hard. Or if you want to see how tough your shields are, you can go against Capybara in the Night Kingdom. You're going to struggle quite a lot, but even more so, the Spiral Abyss is also changing. The enemies have larger HP pools, so you are incentivized, at least on floor 12, to build your teams properly. You're incentivized to get as many characters, or the latest characters, in order to have a significant combat advantage. And even in the Imaginarium Theatre, you are incentivized to build more and more of the characters. So suddenly, a lot of the lack of combat that we've had in 3.2 has been filled up by a lot of activities that we currently have. And I think there is a decent balance that the Genshin devs have made. Now, this is the part where I think Wuthering Waves actually did a good job, because what happened is Wuthering Waves came out and their sole focus was being combat. You see, Genshin launched without a clear goal or a direction in mind. Basically, the Spiral Abyss was always like half-baked, the Teapot was always half-baked, TCG itself is half-baked and nobody plays it because it's a horrible game mode and I hate it. Basically, a lot of things were half-assed, if we're honest, by Genshin. And Wuthering Waves kind of taught us that, hey, players kind of value their endgame. They value more and more difficult challenges. And one of the things that Hoyo did way before Wuthering Waves came out is they kind of said, well, our answer to like in giving players the hardcore experience would be HSR. We're going to give you this game where it's all about speed tuning, HP inflation, getting as many meta characters and team archetypes. It's the usual Hoyo slop that you could have seen from a mile away if you played Honkai Impact Third, because of, well, if you know Hoyo and you know Honkai Impact Third, you know just how much of a cash grab that game is, especially with its power creep and so on. And they did this with Honkai Star Rail, which is I think why a lot of people are now finally catching up to it. People like me pointed this out quite a while ago, a year ago, but hey, you know what, it's never listen to old Kokomi clan. In any case, so yeah, regardless, Honkai Impact Third kind of scratched the itch for a lot of players. It gave them a lot of freshness when Genshin was legitimately stale and didn't have fun things like being able to fly through the sky, like we can see in the background. And definitely what Wuthering Waves have done is they've taken the more hardcore aspects of Honkai Star Rail and the more open world exploration from Genshin Impact, took a lot of lessons from Genshin Impact on what not to do, and they really came out with a very, very good, compelling product. And Wuthering Waves is pretty awesome for the game that it is. Yes, I think like Honkai Star Rail, there are things that if you look carefully aren't really as polished, polished as they could have been, but regardless, I mean, Kuro is doing better and better, and certainly the latest area seems to be a real step up, so that's awesome, and I think that's exactly what kind of prompted Genshin to tighten its focus on what it really wants to be as a game. It can be casual, but as long as it provides you with sufficient combat depth and variety, then I think they've hit the nail on that. Now, a couple of things I don't like about Genshin Impact is, well, basically Natlan. Well, basically I like Natlan a lot. What I don't like is the power of the Natlan characters. I think Mavuika's awesome. Chaska is amazing. I like Shilonen. I like Mulan. They're so really awesome characters, but their power makes me worried for the future, because it feels like we are now going the Honkai Star Rail route, where we're going to give you more and more and more and more and more characters, and it's all just about selling you the latest characters. And what I can even imagine is that in the future, the Spiral Abyss will become even like almost, or at least very difficult without the latest characters. If you've got C6 characters like I've got a C6 Sijuan, you're probably even then going to struggle to make it through. I can totally imagine that happening, and this is unfortunately the sadness of it. I think Hoyo themselves can't just compromise. I wish they followed the Wuthering Waves model, where you don't have any real power creep, and it's all about just giving you variety and kind of unique ways of doing the combat without having a disproportionate increase in damage, such that you kind of feel bad for your previous purchases because they've got now less value because of the way the power creep's going. So yeah, I think whilst Genshin certainly took a lot of inspiration from Wuthering Waves and changing their focus a bit to be a bit more combat heavy, I do see the typical greedy Honkai Impact third practices coming through, and I really don't like it. So hopefully that can be a bit of a wake-up call to Hoyo. I think rather what they should do is create more endgame modes, and for each of these endgame modes, give us, like, let's say a collective, and I've proposed this idea many times before. Say to players, you've got a collective, let's say 2,000 Primo Gems a month in endgame content, but you can choose what type of endgame you want to do, and all of these contribute towards your shared pool. So if you're someone that wants to do TCG, for example, and you want to do the new musical endgame that Genshin's added for no good reason, then you can get your Primo Gems that way. But if you're someone that just wants to do Imaginarium Theatre, Spiral Abyss, the hardcore content, you can also get your Primo Gems that way. And if you're someone that just wants to do a bit of everything without committing too deeply, hey, I mean, I think then you can get your Primo Gems evenly split, and that's how you then properly get your quota, if it will, for the month. I think that's a much healthier approach Hoyo could take, is rather carve out these niches but still allow accessibility to more and more players. And yeah, that would be a good idea for the game going forward. Although, and this is the big thing, I still think Genshin Impact has a bit of an identity crisis. You see, with Wuthering Waves, when a new character comes out, you know it's about the combat. It's not about the waifu bait or the appeal or whatever. It is just about the combat. And I think having that strong identity really cements it, because even if you don't like the character, you don't like their personality or their backstory, or the fact that you're not going to get an Act 2 because Hoyo neglected your poor Kokomi for years and years and barely put her on any events, at least you've got the combat. And I think that's the thing Genshin just didn't get right. For being a casual game without content, Prefontaine and whatever, they didn't even put a lot of effort into their own characters, which was very bizarre to me. I think this whole mini game impact really kind of hurt the game, and I guess that Hoyo tried to create their own competition by like offloading it to Honkai Star Rail, but eventually people just got fed up with it, and I think that's what made Wuthering Waves so strong. That's why I call it the Wuthering effect, because why play two Hoyo games when you've got one game that actually gives you the best of both worlds? Like, think about it. You've got the overworld exploration, and you've got the seriousness and the depth of combat. I mean, I've played now enough of Wuthering Waves to see exactly where their systems are going and so on, and it is just kind of the types of things that you would have wanted since the beginning. Something that's just a value for your money and your purchase. But perhaps we're getting on a bit of a side tangent. But yeah, that's what I wanted to discuss. I think definitely the competition has been very beneficial to Genshin. We've seen a variety of overworld improvements, so definitely well done to Wuthering Waves for at least giving us good competition. I hope it continues and Hoyo can keep their greed in check. So I hope so, for Genshin's sake. Right guys, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.